Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. Real Estate Coaching Radio is the nation's #1 daily radio show for realtors who demand authentic, real-time coaching. Get ready for fluff-free, unfiltered, full-strength honesty about what's truly working to get you into action, helping others, and making money now in today's real estate market. Now to our hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
3, 2, 1, and we're back. Julie, it is February the 5th, and we are going to pick up where we left off yesterday. We were talking about lead generation yesterday. It's definitely the topic du jour for every real estate agent ever was and ever will be. Yes. That's for sure. Because honestly, nowadays with all these options, and I put quotes around the word options, it's very confusing as to what you should be spending your time, let alone your money on, focusing on. And before we get to our next point, I want to talk a little bit more about, because I had one person in particular that sent me I think a respectful but very confused text. And the text was something about social media and all that stuff. And this was somebody, and I spent some time researching him before I responded. It was actually a gal. And I went to her Instagram page, and I could clearly see why she had been upset that we were sort of poking at the fallacies that a lot of people are hooking their ship to in belief that it's going to create steady stream of leads for them. And in her case in particular, she'd been doing a lot of really great posting, little videos and Instagram loops and all this other stuff. And I didn't really spend a lot of time beyond Instagram, but I'm sure she also was doing similar things on, probably TikTok and Facebook and all the rest of it. So she had been listening to one of our competitors actually for 2 years who had been telling her that her mission in life is to constantly be churning out media and content. And her mission in life is to, make it so every single day you discipline yourself to make so many social media posts and so many videos, and all this is going to build some sort of brand that's a super high wall around your business that'll make it so you'll somehow be able to make lots of money selling lots of houses. Well, I didn't spend a lot of time with her trying to pick through the business model aspect. In other words, how much all of her social media effort was translating into transactions. But I did ask her this one question. And this isn't something I thought of. Actually, I heard this someplace else, but I thought it was really great. The point I was wanting to make to her was that she will always be vulnerable. Her business will. Her lead generation will always be vulnerable if she's so dependent on something that she doesn't own. And the quote is, "Why would you build your castle on land that you don't own?" And that's in essence what she's doing. And then I started doing some noodling just so I could make the point in real terms. And there has been a ton of these social media companies that have, at the very least, they've changed the algorithm. So for example, I know on YouTube right now, the people that have lots of YouTube videos, they're getting actually less views. Well, why is that happening? Why is that happening in this era of COVID where you think more people be watching videos? Well, who knows why it's happening? I mean, you can theorize until the cows come home, but the point is it's changing, and most likely it's changing because YouTube is now changing again how it goes about choosing which videos will be easily found when someone's doing a search. And then you go and look at like social media sites that have come and gone like Vine and all these others where people have spent so much time, money, and effort trying to create some kind of presence on this media channel thinking that that will be some sort of long-term lead generation funnel for them. And then it either just completely goes away like Vine or the algorithm gets changed. And the other thing I've noticed is a lot of you guys are really stuck on SEO. SEO is just sort of this confusing mess of ever-changing rules. And I can clearly understand why you're confused about it because there's so many snake oil salesmen out there that are telling you you need to do this and you need to do the other thing. And see, the problem with all this stuff, guys, is not only do you not own the platform that you're putting all your time, money, and effort into, not only do you not own that platform, it could just be taken away from underneath you. Would you build a house on land you don't own? But the other thing is that there's no way to hold it accountable. So you can't actually hold anything that you're doing on social media accountable. That is the one thing that Julie and I have always really had a lot of disdain towards with regards to stuff that's sold to agents. People who are selling stuff to agents intentionally sell stuff to you guys that you can't hold them accountable for. That way you can't say their product didn't work that they were selling to you. You get it? It's basically a perfect fly trap for them. You start doing it, and when it doesn't work, what do they tell you to do? Do more of it. Do it for longer. And all
and
this
upgrade whatever you're paying for.
Exactly. And all these people are in the business of selling you hopium. That's it. That's at the end of the day what they're in the business of selling you. And you have to make a decision whether you're going to continue to be sold something that probably at this point intuitively is kind of a ridiculous thing to be spending so much time and effort on, or whether or not you actually want to learn how to do the real work of real estate and get into the, essentially the end of the pool where everyone's making the money helping people and focusing on being a listing agent, and move away from this, this myth that you can somehow fake your way through being a fake influencer and a fake expert and, leaning on somebody else's Lamborghini basically, and try to somehow convince the world that you're the agent that they should use. And then you guys are the same people that will essentially die in the hill of social media are also the same people that are watching Zillow slowly come in and basically eat their lunch and put them out of business, and yet they still buy leads. Do you see what you guys have done? You got into real estate to essentially be your own boss, be independent, have no ceiling on your income, have all the rest of it, and yet you get into real estate and you actually are in a worse off situation, many of you, than you were before, but you just don't know it. Because now you're dependent on all of these third parties to feed you leads. You have never learned how to be a proactive lead generator. And they all changed. Look at Zillow. Look at what happened to Zillow's reviews that all of you guys spent so much time on. Oh, they said it was a mistake in the code or the programming. Yeah, right. Come on now. When Zillow actually is in your town and you're going against a Zillow agent for a listing, do you really think that brokerage, which is Zillow, is going to basically feature you in any favorable light on their website? Why would they? You're the competition. Don't you obviously? Isn't this so clear to you? And so many of these other companies too. I remember there's been so many of these dingbat fads that have come and gone in the last 10 to 15 years. And I don't even want to rattle off all the names of them because it's just, if they come back around in some other iteration, I'll point them out. But it's all designed to basically separate you from your money. And maybe these things work at, some level, but they don't work as a replacement for proactive lead generation. And that's the thing you've got to get clear in your head. So before you fire off a, impassioned text to me, explain to me how I don't understand the fact that, you're going to somehow be this big real estate influencer, I want you to really ask yourself this one question. Why are you doing it? How long are you going to continue doing it when the hopes and dreams, that it'll work? How long are you actually going to continue to invest your life energy and your money into this particular thing? And what is it costing you? And what is it costing you in terms of obvious things, time, money, but opportunity? And all you'd have to do, isn't your ultimate goal when you got into real estate to, help people and sell houses? Wasn't that it? So why would you overcomplicate the helping people and selling houses if that was your original goal? You wanted to make money. You probably wanted to make a lot of money. How's all this social media stuff working out for you? It's appeasing your ego. It's feeding your, I don't even know if the word's feeding, but it's playing into your desire to never actually feel rejection, or not in the sense that you'd feel rejection if you were actually being a proactive lead generator. You're trying to avoid direct conversations with sellers, and that you're hoping that they'll come to you. That's the passive part because of all your social media. You're going to somehow magically create this golden web of incredible media content that once some seller is, captured in your web, they're captivated by how incredible your content is, and that's going to make it so they call you. This is what you believe. You think that is true. You're being sold something. And over time, if you financially can afford to stay in the business by, keeping that vision propped up, over time you'll realize what I've been, and Julie and I have been, and all of our coaches and our books and all of our podcasts, what we've been telling you is true. And here's the bottom line. When you want to build a successful business, it does not matter what kind of business it is, that you have spokes in the wheel. Each of those spokes represent a source of business. The sources of business that you build first are the ones that require the skill. They're the ones that require proactive lead generation. That after you have those spokes consistently generating business for you, and we talk about this obviously in huge amounts in our coaching program, let alone our book. But once you get those proactive lead generation spokes working consistently, if you then choose to play in social media, by the way, Julie made this funny point the other day. It's called social media, not work media, right?
You are socializing.
It is.
Period.
You are socializing.
And it's not a spoke.
No.
It's support to functioning spokes.
Well,
It's
that's-
support to what you're actually doing in real estate.
But you don't even have to do it. That's
and
the
you don't
point.
have. There's no requirement whatsoever. I'll illustrate your point.
Well, let me just finish, okay?
Yeah.
And then my rant will be over, and I'll
Okay.
flip my rant switch off, okay? But the reality of it is you don't have to do it ever. And a lot of you guys are thinking, well, I have to have this big social media presence in order to basically be successful at real estate. Why do you think that's true? Because you've heard other people who are trying to sell you something say that that's what you need? Because everyone's told you for you to be successful, you need a brand. Because everyone's told you for you to be successful, you need to be doing all these other things that, let me guess, are lining their pockets if you believe what they're saying. Are you understanding what I'm saying here, guys? This should be painfully obvious to you. If you want to be successful in real estate, learn how to be a listing agent. If you want to be successful in real estate quickly, learn how to be a listing agent. If you want to be successful in real estate 5, 10, 20 years from now, be a listing agent. That's it. That's what you have to do. Everything else follows that. So once you're successful at being a proactive lead generator, primarily focused on being a listing agent, you won't want to buy leads. You won't want to do all these other things that agents are doing that produce zero profit for them. And you probably won't ever even want to waste that much time on all the social media stuff because you won't have to. If you have your magic number of listings all the time and you're making consistent money and somebody, calls you and says, hey, Julie, you want to buy a bunch of buyer leads? Will you even, I hope you're polite to them. I mean, honestly, I don't want you to be mean to these poor people trying to sell you stuff you don't need.
They probably don't know.
Yeah, well, exactly.
They're selling something.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point. I mean,
Not their fault, right?
before you buy anything from anybody, and that's designed to basically help you generate business for your business, your rules should be, number one, Mr. Whoever you are who's trying to sell me something, have you ever sold real estate before? If the answer is no, then you need to understand that person is probably not qualified to be giving you any kind of advice, let alone selling you a product or a widget for the betterment of your business. I think you need to be that rigid. Have you sold real estate more before, Mr. Whoever you are? No. Okay. If the answer is yes, let's move on to question number 2. Were you successful at selling real estate? And by successful, it's not they sold 10 houses over 10 years. Successful would be, did they at least sell 100 houses? Have they sold 100 houses in a year? That would be successful. Don't you agree, listeners, that it makes sense that if you're going to listen to somebody, you should listen to someone who's A, sold real estate, and B, sold real estate at a high level of having successfully sold 100 houses in a year? I'm not saying people who haven't don't have lots that you can benefit from. They absolutely do. But I'm saying for the sake of choosing who you're going to do business with and who you're going to rely upon for the sake of the betterment of your business, those are your first 2 criteria. Now, let's say you do find someone that sold real estate that's trying to sell you something. You did find somebody that sold 100 houses who's trying to sell you something. Now, the next question is, did they sell between over 100 houses per year consistently for a long period of time? I would say 3 to 5 years would be qualifying for a long period of time. Did they do that? Because if they didn't, then you now have to realize that if they did indeed sell 100 houses in a year, it was probably a subdivision. It was probably they were an REO agent and they got a bunch of listings from Bank of America or something.
I would add another one, which is if, let's say you find that unicorn, right? Where did their actual business come from? Did they have results from what they're trying to sell you, or did they just invent some kind of SEO widget or something?
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, exactly. And so when you go through those 3 filters, when you're deciding who you're going to do business with, I promise you there will be virtually nobody that you're going to be buying crap from. And there is the answer. You should not be doing business with a lot of these people because they do not know how to help you be successful in real estate. They do know, or they're trying to learn how to sell you stuff that leads you to believe that whatever they're selling will help you to be successful in real estate. Their goal is not in alignment with yours. Yours is to be successful in real estate, helping people and make money. Theirs is to sell you something. Hopefully you're inhaling the hopium with the idea that will then somehow magically make it so you don't ever have to do the real work of real estate. And that's actually being a proactive lead generator. You guys get it? This is just a placebo for work. That's what social media is. That's what all this stuff is. Now, does it have a place? It does, I suppose, but it happens secondarily to actually having done the real work of real estate. Don't be confused about this, especially those of you in your 20s and your 30s, because you guys have never come into contact with the types of things that Julie and I are saying in our book. There's maybe only one other person, Jeb Blunt, that says what Julie and I say. Other than that, no one talks about this anymore. And frankly, they have never even developed a skill set to basically be proactive lead generators. And why don't they talk like, or why don't they have the knowledge base that we have? Because they never did it, because they themselves came up in this era of social media. In other words, they have only been in the business of any kind of business for like 10 or maybe 12 years. And their whole coming up, who they listened to, were all these people that were also saying the same thing. So they never actually had the opportunity, or maybe had the opportunity but rejected it, to learn frankly, the only way to build a long-term sustaining real estate business. Now, let me predicate that. If your goal is to make a 50 or 60% margin, then yes, you want to be a proactive lead generator. If your goal is to make 2 or 3% margin, hopefully, then do the other thing. Right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Are you in business to make a profit? Are you in business to help people? Are you in business? You are. All of you are. All of you guys listening right now, you definitely have a heart of service. You definitely are in alignment with that being I know you are. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 sociopaths are out there. We do have tens of thousands of listeners, I suppose.
Hopefully they've hung up by now.
A few sneak in, right? But the rest of you definitely are in alignment with that mission on this planet, which is what it is. So why don't you put yourself in a position to help as many people as fast as you can? And that requires skill. In order for you to help a lot of people with the job of selling their home, right? Helping them accomplish that goal and solve that problem, you have to earn the right to be that person. Earn it through your skill set and the skill set you have to solve their problems. You're not going to do it through making cute TikTok videos. Hopefully you guys are getting real clear about this. So there is a place for it, but it's absolutely not the first spokes on your wheel. And once you have those first proactive lead generation spokes on your wheel, once those are solid, you then will discover all that stuff was mostly silly and probably, absolutely optional. But you have to do the spokes in the right order.
Yes. Okay. So you were talking about how we're pretty much, and Jeb Blunt are the only ones that are this honest with them. I'll tell you who else is. Our coaching clients who pop up now and then, because I scan through with things like Agent Mastermind Facebook and Lab Code Agents and all these places where you guys post and try and influence each other. And most of the time, it's a conversation that goes nowhere. I'll give you an example.
Well, I've seen it.
Yeah. Well, and why do I go there? I don't spend that much time there. But I go there to see 2 things. One is I see what they're dealing with their negotiations and hot market stuff that's being thrown at them. And then the other one is just to see, like, what is the agent mindset? I'm just kind of taking a temperature and seeing what's the hot topic. So I think it was yesterday morning, I saw somebody that said, I got my license yesterday. Zillow has already contacted me, and they've given me 3 options, silver, gold, and bronze. And it started at like $1,500 a month, $2,500, $3,500. And of course, agents were like, well, what are you supposed to get for that? Well, I'm supposed to get this many impressions and between 10 and 12 leads a month or something like that. Okay. And so there was some discussion back and forth about, how much you should be spending in paid lead generation, what's the best. And then somebody chimes in and says, well, I mean, I picked up the phone for like an hour and a half this morning, and I already have a well-qualified listing appointment with an older expired. I have another one Saturday with somebody from my center of influence because I talk to them all the time, and I've got a total of about maybe 3.5 hours invested and $0. And you could just almost hear the crickets,
yeah.
Right? And, I'm scanning down, and I thought, well, that was a smart response. I wonder who that was. I looked it up. I think it was Matthew Sharp, somebody that's been with us for like 3 or 4 years. And I thought, well, there's a good example. Now, can you do that out of the gates? We've had coaching clients that...
Absolutely. We did when you and I were in our early 20s. I mean, no, we didn't have scripts. We had to learn on the job. We sold over 100 houses our first year in the business.
Yeah. And many of them were expireds. Many of them were for sale by owners. Yep. There were some open house leads.
We had no centers of influence.
No, we didn't have any past clients. Now we did prospect our detail business, center of influence. But these are proactive, talking to people, lead generation. This is not shelling out your Visa card because somebody called you the second you got licensed. My point being 2 things. One is that they don't really have a filter for this, because how would you know if you're supposed to do that or not? When everybody talks about, what are you spending?
That's the problem. Is they're
not educated on it.
They're not. It's the levels. I hate saying this but it's so relevant. It's the the different levels of learning. That's
Sure.
really what it is. And a lot of these guys don't know what they don't know. It's unconscious incompetence.
And
basically.
you can stay there for a long time.
Well, and then they go to these places. They go to these places to get misinformation, and then the same people who also have misinformation are passing along the bad information,
right.
and then it just basically wash, rinse, repeat, and it goes on for decades.
Yes.
But what's really sad is a lot of if you go back to some of those Facebook groups that have been up for years, and you go and start clicking through some of these agents aren't even in the business anymore.
I know.
They're gone.
They're not really
And
qualified.
what happened? But my point is, what happens to those agents? They never start learning how to do the proactive work of real estate. So, guys, the concept here is really very simple. If you are not going to be able to fake your way into being a listing agent, and many of you guys know that. And that's the reason you gravitate towards working with buyers, because working with buyers is social work. Basically it's just being friendly and just talking to people. And it's not a lot of skill. Let's just be honest. It's physical labor. But working with sellers on all ends of it is a skill set that you have to learn. And the longer you hide behind that necessary skill set, I'm going to join a team, I'm going to buy leads, I'm going to work on my branding, I'm going to do all these other things, the greater chance you have of complete failure. Anyone who's been in the business for more than a blink knows what I'm telling them and telling you guys is absolutely true. So when you pop around all these different places and you're trying to seek out the latest widget and the latest shiny object, and that's what so many of you guys do, I bet you there's easily, I don't want to say a trillion, but there is easily hundreds of billions of dollars that are being spent right now by real estate agents. Like the real estate industry in the United States is a $30 trillion a year industry or something like that, all added up. But I bet you I would be shocked if it was less than $100 billion a year that agents spend on gimmicks.
Yeah.
And they basically, they're always looking, it's like an addiction to whatever the latest, greatest thing is. And they go from one latest greatest thing to another to another to another.
Sure.
Why are
They're
you
samplers? They try stuff out.
But listeners, why are you doing that? Explain to me why you're doing that. If you got into real estate to help people and to make money and to improve your life and the lives of everyone else you know, you didn't get into this business and didn't get your license wanting to be a silver bullet or shiny nickel chaser, did you? You didn't originally get into business to essentially become a social media star, did you? You just took bad advice. You need some course direction. You need it immediately. Otherwise, how are you going to stay in the business? This business is going to see a surge in new licensees. I'm absolutely...
No, it already is. I see it all the time.
Yep. We are seeing a surge in the number of people signing up for a coaching program. Our podcast listens are increasing all over the world. All the reasons that right now the number of people that are getting into real estate is going to go through the roof. It's because people were mostly at home globally, because of COVID, and they all got real estate licenses. The states themselves are backed up in some cases a year before you're allowed to sit for your test.
Almost all of our coaching clients that have kids in their 20s and 30s, they're all licensed or getting licensed. Every single one of them.
So the number of people getting into real estate, I can't even speculate, but it's going to be, you're going to hear reports a year from now where National Association of Realtors is going to, be building a new glass building in Washington, D.C. from all the dues and whatnot. But the point being is the number of agents is going to increase, not just in the United States, globally. And a lot of people getting into real estate are getting into real estate with previous professional backgrounds, and they are going to come to the industry, and they are not going to succumb to the gimmicks. They are going to know what it takes to actually be successful in business because they're going to have previous real business experience, which most people get into real estate did not have. And that's the reason that you guys are always going to fall prey to the people trying to sell you the gimmicks, because you do not have the filters in place to know who you should be listening to. And these guys, these new waves of agents that we're starting to see, they're absolutely going to dominate the marketplace. I'm positive of that.
Yeah, well, coming from business backgrounds, many of them do have a better filter. Many of them do sniff out, why would I do that? Why am I going to pay for that?
They ask the right questions.
Right, because whatever they came from has had a systematic approach, and they know that there's a better mousetrap out there, right?
Well, agents don't ask the questions.
That's my point.
My 3 filters. Yeah. The whole point of that was to design it so that essentially nobody makes it through the filters.
Right.
And that's what you should be. You should seriously be thinking about.
I have to confess, oftentimes on those boards that I read, I just simply post comparacoach.com. and make sure that you've asked the questions, because it's not all the same. Why would you ever take advice from somebody who hasn't sold real estate or somebody who hasn't done it at your level or doing what they're trying to coach you to do? It's insanity. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't hire somebody to teach Zoe Spanish that,
exactly.
It was like their 5th language.
Well, just to be totally self-serving too. Yeah. I doubt if there's anybody in the real estate industry that's had more one-on-one calls than you and I.
Oh, there's no way.
You and I personally. I would be shocked if there's
Millions.
Millions. Right.
I mean, no joke, because I think like 7 years ago when we were at hundreds of thousands, I stopped counting.
Yep.
So it does make a difference. And I think that there's a huge advantage. Like,
why does it make a difference? Because when we're training our coaches who work for us, our Harris Certified Coaches, you guys can go to harriscertifiedcoach.com to learn more. But when we're training our certified coaches, they're getting the experience from not only someone who's sold real estate at a high level, but also someone who's truthfully, we coached agents at a much higher level than we ever sold real estate.
Absolutely.
And so that's the experience that trickles down to you guys. So when you're trying to compare apples to oranges, it's more than, you have to be very discerning on who you listen to. Start with those 3 filters and don't compromise. Don't allow yourself to make an emotional purchase. Don't just pop in different websites and just because everyone's saying you need to be making this video, a whole bunch of videos, a whole bunch of Instagramming, to be on Clubhouse all the time, all these other things. Don't assume they know what the hell they're talking about because they probably don't.
No.
Because they've never sold real estate, they've never sold real estate at a high level, or they've never sold real estate at a high level for a long period of time. Does this not make sense?
It absolutely does. When you find yourself saying, well, I guess I'll try that out, that is your red flag going, no. There's no trying it out. The longer you spend trying it out, sampling different things, you're just wasting time in your career, and you are on the path to washing out, like the big statistic says, that most agents don't make it past. It used to be 18 months. Now I think it's like 12 months or so because they're blowing all their money up front.
I truthfully feel sorry for the agents who are not being exposed or at least given an opportunity to learn the truth about what it takes to be successful in any business long term.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for them because they're getting into this business and they probably in some cases have quit their steady paychecks and they've pinned their hopes and their dreams and their family's hopes and their dreams to this real estate career.
Sure.
And then they fall into these different rabbit holes and then months and then years pass and then they're failed. Mm-hmm. They fail.
Yeah.
And maybe they hold on by their fingernails, but they never make any money. And where it rips at me, frankly, is because I had a father who was an entrepreneur and I saw him fail many times in his business ventures. And I remember how that would absolutely be like a gut punch that it would take him sometimes. Well, he never really got over them.
And it didn't just affect him; it affected his family.
Oh yeah, it made our family life when I was growing up pretty awful, truthfully, because we never had any real money.
No security.
Right,
Yeah.
Financial insecurity was a thing. It's real. But as I see all these people, this is really where my heart goes when I'm talking about this crap. Right, is that I hear all these absolute gimmick snake oil salesmen, and maybe I do think most of them know what they're selling is fake. I really do. And then I think of all these agents that are coming into the industry that don't have, frankly, should not be even paying for anything, that has anything to do with buying leads or any of this other stuff. And they just get sucked into it. And they talk to all their friends and their peers, and they reinforce them making bad business decisions. They don't stop to think, well, maybe I shouldn't be asking, that real estate agent for, financial advice or for business advice because maybe they're not successful. Oh, but hold on, they have a bunch of TikTok videos, so that must mean something.
Let's go research them. Oh, well, they look professional. Okay, so let me ask a question. How many people would have gotten your license if in real estate school they said, you're going to have to spend thousands of dollars per month to create some kind of image for yourself to attract business? Wouldn't you have just been like, what? And then when you get your license, it's like you feel like you've got to do that stuff. I just think it's such a disparity between when you're all excited about getting into this and then you get sucked into that vortex.
Well, again, so let's assume that we've done a sufficient job
let's land the plane.
Of making the point. Let's land the plane. Okay, but I do want to make this last point. If you want to be successful in real estate, and I've said this, and Julie and I will say this until the cows come home. And by the way, definitely get our book, Harris Rules, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible books, everything everywhere you can possibly imagine. But if you want to be successful long-term in real estate, and you want to make the most profit, I'm going to tell you the secret. Ready? Oh, actually, I will even tell you. Here's the bottom line: be a listing agent, and you don't have to wait to be a listing agent. You don't have to, work with thousands of buyers before you can be a listing agent. You don't have to brand yourself. No, you do not have to brand yourself and spend a bunch of money on your branding in order to be a listing agent. No, you do not have to do all the crap that people are telling you have to do to be a listing agent. What you have to do is know how to solve other people's problems, and that starts with knowing how to be a proactive lead generator. That's it. And guess what? What I just told you, it takes your time and it takes effort because you're going to have to learn the skill, but it does not cost you a nickel. You can learn how to be a proactive lead generator. It doesn't cost you anything. So I want you to hear, this would be a fun, I should actually do this next time someone unknowingly solicits us to sell us because they think we're real estate agents.
Yeah.
And so we get all these crappy ass emails too. So next time I get one, I'm going to ask them this question. Actually, I am going to do this. I'm going to email them back, or I might even talk to them, and I'll say, so I want you to help me understand, Mr. Gimmick Salesman, why is it that I should be spending, $1,500 a month with you to generate a bunch of buyer leads where I could just basically do 1, 2, 3 and essentially go after sellers and become a proactive listing agent and not have to really spend anything? Explain to me which is going to get me the results faster. Explain to me which is going to put money in my pocket faster. Help me understand why I'd want to spend, $18,000, $20,000 a year with you when I can just basically go after the exact people who I'm hoping to attract in the first place from all the social networking gimmicky crap, which is motivated sellers. If I can get, so Mr. whoever it is that's trying to sell me something, why would I buy what you've got for sale when I've already got a list, and I have a list every single day of new expireds, for example, probate, for example, notice of defaults, for example. There's going to be all sorts of added opportunity for motivated sellers. So why would you waste your money and time doing those other things when you can just simply go and get the list of people who already have their hands in the air saying, yes, I want to sell my house? Do you guys see how this is different than all other forms of business? Other forms of business, you have to create the product and then you have to create the customer. In real estate, you do not have to do that. The product is obviously the real estate, and frankly, the product is your profit from the transaction, but the inventory doesn't cost you anything. You just have to earn the right to be the person that gets the listing. It's not that complicated. It's the most simple business you could possibly get into. You made the right decision getting in your real estate license. Now make the secondary right decision, making it so you can stay in the real estate industry, so you can thrive in the real estate industry, so you can thrive long term, so you can make more money. And then when you learn the proactive stuff, I guarantee you will not be seduced into believing that you need to do all the other things. I want to make a final point. I had a call yesterday, and this was a guy, and he doesn't listen, so I don't care if he knows who I'm talking about, because I know he's not a listener. Mm-hmm. Okay, he was in Maryland, and he has had a team of, it was like 13 or 15 agents, and his team did $84 million last year.
It's respectable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
And I forget the number of units they sold. I could look at my notes. So, and I am talking to them because they want to join EXP, and they want Julie and I to be their sponsor. And if you want to join EXP, you could text me directly at 512-758-0206. 512-758-0206. So I don't remember the exact number of transactions they did. Actually, I could look at my notes because it's kind of interesting. Let me see if I can find it easily. Looking in my notes. Oh, here it is. All right. 43,160 transactions. So actually I had the numbers wrong. So it's 43,163 transactions. The average sale price was like $330,000. So I asked this person, very nice guy, and I asked him essentially what percent of the 160 deals, was that what I said? Yeah, 160 deals, how many of those were list sides, how many of those were buy sides? And he said it was split evenly, which is what I typically find, 80-80. And then I asked him on the buy side what his profit was on the buyer side transactions. He sort of knew but didn't really know. And then I asked him what his profit was per buyer agent that he had. He didn't know at all. And then I asked him how many houses, and I did the math for him on my calculator. I said, how many house listings did you actually go out, and he's his own listing agent, right? How many houses did you go out and list last year? And it was the 80 or something about close to that. And then I put pen to paper. And then I quickly figured out that what he was doing, and probably about $200,000 a year. Now, I want you to listen to what I'm telling you, listeners. He was actually subsidizing the buyer side of his business. So if you look at his 160 transactions, there's the seller side and there's the buyer side. On the buyer side of the business, he was spending untoward amounts of money with Zillow. He had all these buyer agents. He had them on a commission split where he was making barely any money. He had all these transaction coordinators, not to mention all the time he's spending carrying and feeding all these buyer agents. Okay, so there's that side of the business. On that side of the business, the amount of money, I'm going to call him Bob, the amount of money that was actually making it into Bob's pocket was zero. Not only that, Bob was out listing houses, and essentially Bob was subsidizing the buyer side of the business to the amount of about $200,000 per year just to keep those buyers agents in business. He was spending what should have been his profit from his listing efforts to keep the buyer side of the train on the tracks. Do you understand?
And by the way, there's not just one Bob in the country. We've had this story many times.
Brokers
with just
too.
Slightly different numbers, but the same story.
Right. I mean, this is common on these big teams. They don't make any money on the buyer side of the transaction. You could say the buyer agent commissions are too high. You can say that the buyer leads cost too much. You can say all that stuff. But and all of it's true. None of it's, there's a whole bunch of headwinds to making profits off the buyer side of the business, which now I want you to add some complexity to it. There's every reason to believe that the buyer side commissions are going to start being the subject of what these tech companies are going to go after in order to reduce their transactional costs. In other words, the co-op commission is going to become optional. You're going to see buyer agent commissions reduced. And so what's going to happen to Bob's business model when his cost of his leads are staying the same, when his buyer agents are still expecting to have the same commission split, but the actual revenue on the buyer side of the business actually starts to get even worse? Well, I can tell you what's going to happen. Very quickly, Bob's personal income is going to go to zero, if not negative, because he is going to continue to subsidize that side of the business. Now, why does he do it? Because Bob wants to talk about his numbers. Bob wants to be able to say, I sold 160 houses. Bob wants to say, I sold $84 million in real estate. Bob does not ever talk about Bob's profit. The Bob profit conversation did not come up, but I was able to figure out what Bob's profit works because I've done this so many times with other teams, and I was able to quickly show him what his actual cash flow was looking like without ever having seen his spreadsheet, and I think he got it. And what did he get? He got the fact that the way he's built his business was predicated on a business model that was not designed to create the most important thing in any business, which is called profit. It was designed to churn out transactions and dollar volume. Anybody who's had a big team before, anybody who's been in this industry for more than, a blink, knows what I just said is true. And yet, how many of you are not only falling down the branding, buying lead, rabbit holes, but also walking into the whole team thing? When you listen to people talk, when they want to talk about their units and they want to talk about their dollar volume, it's impressive. Congratulations. I'm not saying it didn't take, some skill. It didn't take some talent. You did a really good job of churning transactions and churning money. Great. Good job. But let's talk about your profit. Let's talk about what you actually made. And here's what I find consistently. And this is a real heartbreaker for those of you who are on this team thing. And the team thing's become a bit like a religion. Is if you basically generate $1 million in revenue as a team leader, you're probably only going to net about $120,000 or $150,000, maybe $200,000. You can go, Julie. You can net that same amount of money if you sell about $350,000 or really about $250,000. You can net that same amount of money that you would have had you basically made $1 million as a team, someone running a team. So these are all things that you guys need to be taking into consideration as you decide where you're going to invest your time, money, and energy, because you don't get any of those things back especially your money, if you don't invest it correctly. Now, yes, this has nothing to do with the topic we were planning on talking with you about, but it was a rant worth having, wasn't it? Did we make an impression on some of you? Did we open your eyes? Are we giving you an alternative path forward, assuming that your business modus operandi was originally intended to be around profit and helping people? If that's the case, get back on track. Don't allow yourself to go down these rabbit holes thinking that there's somehow a pot of gold at the other end. There isn't. If there is, you'd see these real estate teams being built and sold. You'd see these real estate teams being rolled up and there being some big, none of this stuff happens because these are inefficient businesses, and not because the people running the businesses aren't potentially fantastic business people. Most of them are, truthfully. It's because the business model is flawed. It's broke. It doesn't work. It barely worked when it was created back in the 90s. That's when all this stuff was created back in the 90s, guys. None of this stuff is new. It barely worked then. Assuming by work, I mean your goal is to have an actual profit from your business. If that is your goal, the business model that a lot of you guys are essentially blissfully walking down or walking towards is not going to produce the profit you need to make a meaningful impact on your financial future and your ability to actually build wealth, your ability to actually make essentially have financial stability. Whereas we talk about in our book, to be rich. And rich is simply where your money works for you. You no longer have to work for your money. In other words, you've produced enough profit, and with that profit, you reinvest it, and then you can have essentially, cash flow sources that aren't, required or aren't predicated on selling real estate. And that's a goal that all of you should be moving towards, because I've got an unfortunate, news report here for you. As you get older, you're going to wish you would have listened to what I just said. intuitively, every single one of you that are listening to what I'm saying now, you have to at least have a few little epiphanies or sparks go off in your head that what I'm saying is true. So what do you do with this information? You need to take a hard look at why you originally got into the real estate business in the first place. And I can pretty much guarantee you, having done this exercise with a lot of people, it wasn't to be a social media star. You guys got into real estate because you ultimately wanted freedom. You wanted freedom of how you spend your time, what you do, who you spend your time with. That sense of freedom only comes from having financial security. In other words, being rich. That is the bottom line. You have to essentially help enough people accomplish their goals in order for you to earn the right to basically be at that point where you can have one day have that sense of financial freedom. I strongly encourage you to really calibrate your radar into why you truly got into this business. And if you are not laser focused on what your true mission is, what's going to happen is you're going to have thousands of people that are going to meander in and out of your life, and they're going to grab hold of that tuning dial of your radar, and they're going to tune it to their frequency so they can basically, sell you something. That is what they're going to mostly try to do. Sell you into a gimmick, sell you into an idea. There are business people that are outselling you on what you need to be doing to basically build your business. And hopefully that makes sense. And if I've offended any of you, I apologize. It's not my goal to offend people. It's my and Julie's goal to wake you guys up to the potential and the blessing that the real estate industry can be. It also can be a curse. It can be a horrible experience for some of you, but it is not designed like that. This industry is a blessing. Focus on why you got into the business, which is being of service to other people. Focus on, frankly, what you're here to offer the world, the universe, your buyers and sellers. And when you do that, you're naturally then going to want to learn the skill set to be of service to them. Otherwise, you're out of alignment with what your highest and truest purpose is, which is being of service to other people. If you're here to be of service to other people, you have to have the skill set to be able to serve, right? Right. And you're not getting that doing TikTok videos. You're not doing that working on your brand. You guys get it? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So at least absorb this, think about it. Text me if you want to talk about it. If you guys have any other show ideas, please always text me. I really sincerely appreciate it. And in the meantime, look, guys, thank you for continuing to make this the #1 listened to daily podcast in the United States for real estate agents. It is our honor, our pleasure, and I mean that from Julie and I. We love doing this podcast. We love the feedback. We love the impact that we're having on all of you. It's incredible, and we feel blessed to be part of your lives, and we sincerely appreciate the opportunity to continue to be of service to you. So if there's anything I can do for you, text me directly at 512-758-0206. Thanks, and have a fantastic day.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows. And until next time, thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.